Now to the presidential election in Turkey. The country appears to be heading towards a runoff, which will likely be held in 2 weeks. Incumbent President Erdogan reportedly had a slight edge over his main rival with just over 49% of the votes. But it still fell short of the required amount of votes for an outright win. So joining me now from Turkey is CBS News reporter Pinar Sevinclidir. She is going to break this all down for us. So Pinar, what was required was for at least one candidate to get at least 50% or more of the vote. Looks like Erdogan came very, very close, but not close enough. So talk to me a little bit about sort of the next in line, the opposition, how close that person came, and how different they are from each other, Erdogan and, the runner-up, if you will.
Anne-Marie, it was a very long and tense night last night, and without a clear winner, as you put it. The official results are not out yet, but the runoff is the most likely outcome. It was a really disappointing night for the opposition, I must say, who was so confident this time around that they were going to win. The opposition candidate, 74-year-old Kemal Kilicdaroglu, was ahead of all the polls ahead of the election, but he failed to deliver. 6 political parties from completely different backgrounds, completely different ideological places actually came together only to unseat Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, but clearly they failed to do so in the first round. Actually, the strange thing is there was a really unexpected winner, maybe we can say, from last night. Sinan Ogan, a fringe ultra-nationalist candidate, managed to secure 5% of the votes, which would make him almost a kingmaker in a possible runoff, depending on who he is going to support in the possible second run, which side he is going to support. Well, the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his results are, I think, quite interesting as well. Despite failing to secure a clear win, Turkish president showed that he is still a force to reckon with, even after 20 years in power. Despite a failing economy, despite an ailing economy, inflation is at 40%. People are struggling to make ends meet. There's a cost of living crisis. And on top of that, what many call an inadequate response to a major earthquakes that killed more than 50,000 people back in February, he can still command almost half of the voters' support. His party also secured, his party and his allies managed to secure a majority in the parliament, which is going to make it very difficult for the opposition to rule, even if they win the second round.
Right, because if his party has the parliament and he wins, and you mentioned this kingmaker who is an even more conservative candidate. If during the runoff that individual's voters lean towards Erdogan, which they're more likely to do because he's also a conservative candidate, I want you to talk to me about what this could mean outside of Turkey, what this could mean for NATO, what this could mean for the relationship with Russia. What does this mean for the rest of the world if this could happen?
Well, as you just mentioned, Turkey is actually a member of NATO military pact, and it has the second largest army in the pact, only after the US. Well, it's just Turkey and NATO allies. The relationship between Turkey and the NATO allies haven't always been very smooth, especially in the recent years. Last year, Turkey blocked accession bids from Finland and Sweden, which was directly prompted by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And last month, Turkey lifted the block on Finland's bid, but talks between Sweden and Turkey failed. They fell through. So it wouldn't be surprising if Sweden and the NATO allies will be watching this election very, very closely. Also, Turkey is located between East and West and a strategic US ally. But again, the ties between Turkey and US also been problematic in the last year, especially the ties spiraled down since 2019 when Turkey decided to buy Russian missiles, which, according to US, says that it has potential to endanger American military technology. So there is that relationship also needs to be a lot of nurturing. One other aspect is actually the Turkey-Russia ties that everybody would be watching. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan cultivated personal ties with Russian President Vladimir Putin and nominated himself as a mediator soon after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Although the diplomatic talks Turkey prompted fell through, nothing much came out of it, but a grain deal brokered by UN and Turkey seemed to be a success. More than 20 million tons of grain was exported from Ukraine, which is helped to ease the food prices around the world. So I think it wouldn't be so far-fetched to say that many will be watching this possible second round around the world, because they would want to know who would lead Turkey in the next 5 years and who would be determining Turkish foreign policy next 5 years.
Right, especially if you have, as you have Erdogan moving sort of more and more, becoming more and more of a conservative leader than he was when he was first elected. Yeah, the whole world will be watching. Pinar, thank you very much.